Spin the Fago, bathing in gray Sharpie ink and alcohol. Cosplayers who were collectively spitting in a bucket and passing it around. People almost drowned. I could go on. There's many stories to be told. You want to know something I've heard on a handful of occasions that is simultaneously hilarious and also makes me want to wither away a little bit inside? When I get talking to people about fandoms I'm currently active in, and then the conversation steers into fandoms I used to be active in, and Homestuck doesn't come up, they're like, oh, that's funny, you seem like you would have been a Homestuck girly. Oh, gee, thanks. I really can't blame them. I mean, look at my old roster, for f***'s sake. And it's not necessarily like a bad thing. I've met plenty of lovely Homestuckers back in the day, and objectively the story is very compelling and intricate. There's a lot of interesting characters, and the fandom got so big for a reason. But when you're from the Homestuck era of the internet and you remember all of the stuff you used to see and hear about from that fandom, but yeah, the big bombshell of the video is I never got into Homestuck. Never had a Homestuck phase. I know for someone who talks an awful lot about fandom, I feel like a fraud. The imposter syndrome is setting in deep. I tried to read it my freshman year of high school, which was 2011, and then my sophomore year, and then my junior year. I could never get it to stick. I think the furthest I actually got was like halfway through Act 1. However, even though I never sat down and read through the entirety of Homestuck myself, I did have several friends who were into it, like really into it. A classmate of mine actually made the front page of Tumblr because of her really good Kanaya cosplay, but has since become the textbook definition of your stereotypical sorority girl, so go figure. And thanks to those friends needing to share their Homestuck brain rot or else they'd explode, I got to live the Homestuck fandom experience vicariously on the peripheral through them. For those who weren't around for the Homestuck era, maybe it was before or after your time, or you just weren't on Tumblr in the 2010s, you've likely heard people talking about it, and maybe you've wondered what exactly it is, but at this point you're too afraid to ask. What is Homestuck? In a nutshell, it's a webcomic. Think like an older, distant cousin of something you'd find on Webtoon nowadays. Some people have called it a game because of its text mechanics, integrated flash games, RIP, and animations thrown in, but essentially it's a comic with bits and baubles to make it more interactive for the reader. Interface-wise, it feels kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure game, only you can't choose different diverting paths. The story is already laid out. Reading the synopsis directly from Wikipedia here, the story follows a group of teens, internet besties, you may have seen these guys floating around, who triggered the inevitable destruction of Earth by installing the beta version of an upcoming computer game, Suburb. Suburb? They're stuck at home in the suburbs. They soon come into contact with a group of internet trolls who turn out to be horned aliens from another planet. You've definitely seen these guys at some point on your time online. And the trolls work together with the kids to create a new universe by completing the game. The comic itself is roughly 8,000 pages, over 800,000 words, and split into 4 parts, each part with multiple acts. And that's not taking into account the Homestuck epilogues, Homestuck 2, or Homestuck Beyond Canon, which is the sequel to Homestuck that has gone through its fair share of hiatuses and hiccups, more on that in a bit. There's Hive Swap, which is a video game, and it's a Homestuck spin-off that takes place in the same universe. It raised $2.5 million on Kickstarter for its development. As for Homestuck's story, it's complicated. It's non-linear, there's lots of different parts and lots of different characters, and from my knowledge, different versions of those characters from different time periods or different realities because of timey-wimey that happens. But in its heyday, Homestuck was huge. You could not talk about fandom in those days without Homestuck being brought up, and if you went to conventions, you could not escape the hordes of gray cosplayers with candy corn horns running around. The Homestuck fandom is, and likely will forever be remembered in infamy and fame alike, as one of the fandoms of all time. The community started out fairly small, living mainly on the MS Paint forums at the time, but after the Hive Bent arc went underway, which is the story arc centered around the trolls, learning more about those characters and how they work, it drew the attention of some of the larger fandoms living on Tumblr at the time. There was My Little Pony, some anime fandoms, Hitalia was a big one. Homestuck and Hitalia simultaneously had a huge rivalry and a huge overlap in their fan bases, which made things really funny and really bizarre hearing about the clashes they'd have. Like a divorced couple that just can't stay separated.
Homestuck, I want another divorce!
As the comic went on, it got bigger, and by 2012, it was everywhere. Cascade, the finale of Act 5 and Part 2, crushed Newgrounds, multiple Flash websites, Twitter, and Tumblr. And then there's the Homestuck cosplayer horror stories, which are almost like internet folklore at this point. You may want to fasten your seatbelt because I'm going to take you on a quick ride through the more notable ones. There was the notorious incident of a Homestuck cosplayer trying to dye their skin gray by bathing in gray Sharpie ink and alcohol. This Tumblr post was the first-hand account of one of their friends. Ben Nye, the stage and costume makeup brand, sold out of gray body paint in 2011, right before Comic-Con. There were so many tales of fans running around in unsealed gray body paint, ruining other people's cosplays. Just imagine you finally finished con crunching. You spent hours laboring over your Princess Euphemia from Code Geass dress, and you want it to look perfect, and it does. It looks beautiful. You put it on, you're walking around the con floor, and some Homestuck cosplayer walks past you, brushes past you, and they're like, oh, hey, sorry, friend. And you look, and your dress, your skirt is just smeared in gray body paint. Yeah, lots of stories like that, and then some. Metal buckets were thrown at people. One such incident left a Carcat cosplayer bleeding. Cosplayers would beat each other up because of their characters' actions in the comics. Gamzee cosplayers were a big target of this. Cosplayers would act out in general and attack people at conventions and elsewhere to be in character. There was a group of Homestuck cosplayers who were collectively spitting in a bucket and passing it around at a restaurant. Lots and lots and lots of hotel damages. Some hotels even refusing to partner with conventions anymore because of it. Spin the Fago, bottle games getting wildly out of hand and inappropriate to the point where it was banned from conventions. And there were several rumors of Homestuck cosplayers pushing each other downstairs or into fountains, and at least 2 separate incidents came up where people almost drowned because of it. I could go on, there's many stories to be told. Once the Homestuck frenzy died down and the more ravenous fans wanted something new to sink their teeth into, they moved on to fandoms like Steven Universe, Undertale, Danganronpa, My Hero Academia, Voltron. During Homestuck's golden era, there were frequently tips between new Stucks versus old Stucks. New Stucks referred to the fans who got into Homestuck during its big boom, mainly out of interest for the trolls and cosplay, versus the old Stucks, who were like the old guard, who attributed all of these bad Homestuck cosplayer incidents and the bad name of the Homestuck fandom in general to the new Stucks, and were like, oh, we should just go back to the old forum days. I hate how the fandom has changed so much, and all these new Stucks are ruining everything. Now, despite how utterly insane these all sound, obviously they don't account for or represent the entire fandom, what with how big it was. You just would hear about them more because of how, well, insane they are. They're like a poppy sticking out of a daisy field. And plus it's hard to ignore chicanery happening when the people doing it are painted gray with big orange horns on their head. What's sad too is that a lot of people who cosplayed Homestuck in later years, after everything calmed down, would get relentlessly harassed and even attacked by other con-goers at conventions just because they were dressed as Homestuck characters. There were a lot of closet Homestuck fans, or fans that were just like, okay, yes, I like Homestuck, but I promise I'm not gonna throw a bucket or a Fago bottle at you. Like, if you think that cosplaying Homestuck is cringy, that's one thing, but if you go up to someone who's just standing there not doing anything wrong and get up all in their face and verbally lash out at them and cuss them out, no, believe it or not, the fandom is still alive and kicking today, albeit a lot smaller and quieter than it used to be. Which makes sense, given that the people who stuck around and didn't jump ship to other fandoms at the time are a lot more casual about Homestuck these days and are in their late 20s or well into their 30s and 40s. There has even been a bit of a resurgence on TikTok in the cosplay community, as well as several accounts of people talking about their early con-going days and how if they ever were lost or were just having a bad time, you could always rely upon a group of Homestucks to adopt you, and they'd help you out, brighten your day, or feed you. Earlier, I mentioned Homestuck 2, Homestuck Squared, Homestuck Beyond Canon, which is the sequel to Homestuck that has been described as the official fanonization. It launched on October 25th, 2019, had a brief hiatus in May of 2020, and then kept going after that. But at the start of 2021, nothing. It was later revealed that due to a series of personal attacks towards the comic staff, Homestuck Beyond Canon would be put indefinitely on pause and updates would cease until the entirety of the comic was finished behind the scenes, and only then would it pick back up again, and Patreon for Homestuck Beyond Canon was also closed. After that, it was pretty much radio silent for 2.5 years until October 2023, last year. I know, crazy, right? When it started back up again with a new crew of creatives, the Patreon reopened, and it's been updating monthly ever since. Okay, with all of that being said, how much do I actually know about Homestuck itself? Well, here's what I can recall from my very fuzzy memories of my time sitting on the sidelines of the fandom. A lot of this will probably not be entirely right, but I'm hoping it's somewhere in the ballpark at the very least. Okay, so the kids are John Egbert, Rose, Jade, and Dave Strider. Dave has an older brother named Dirk Strider. I used to get the two mixed up a lot. Each of the four kids also has an element associated with them. John's is air, Rose's is water, Jade's is earth, and Dave's is fire. Yeah, I had to catch myself from calling him Dirk. They both have these awful sunglasses they wear. And there's also someone named Jane as well, but I'm not sure where she fits in with the other four kids. The trolls are from a planet in a galaxy far, far away. They're each based off of an astrological sign and have a distinct, unique way of typing, like typing quirks. There's Gamzee, who is a clown. There's Carcat, who talks like this in every rendition I've ever seen of him. Vriska, who apparently did nothing wrong. Kanaya, who has a red skirt. Nepita, you know, like, yeah. Equius, who's based off of Sagittarius, and I remember that because it's my birth sign, and I was like, how come I get this rando guy? He looks lame. His teeth get super f***ed up for some reason at some point, and I don't know why. Eridan's a nerd. There was a series of audio recordings of someone impersonating Eridan reading My Immortal on YouTube that one of my friends was obsessed with, so whenever I think of My Immortal, I hear it in that Eridan voice. Tavros is the troll with the slightly shaved head and the huge candy corn horns. He ends up in a wheelchair at some point, and I remember that because there were stories back in the day of Tavros cosplayers being in wheelchairs and being tipped over by other Homestuck cosplayers. Yeah. There's the fish girl with the cute headpiece. She kind of has a thing with Eridan. Solix was the one with the 3D glasses and the little horns. I think he's also friends with Eridan. There's also the cute Aries girl. And then, yeah, that's all I got. The trolls reproduce by putting their bodily fluids into a bucket that they then deliver to their hive mother, queen mother, who then takes everything in and lays eggs. There's 4 different types of romantic relationships that trolls can have with one another, and they're each modeled after the card suits. Miraculous has the love square, and then Homestuck has whatever this diagram is. Each of the 4 different types of romantic love has a different name. I don't know the names. The red heart one is the most akin to traditional human relationships involving love and sex. The red diamond relationship is less about sex and more about being there for one another, like emotionally depending on one another. The spade relationship is like hate like rivals and lovers. I hate you, let's bone sort of thing. And the club is a 3-way relationship involving someone mediating between the spade relationship to make sure they don't kill each other. They're balancing the other 2 out. These relationships can also change over time and are shiftable. And there's something to do with like a pale relationship. I'm not sure what the pale relationship is out of the 4. Some of the trolls end up killing each other brutally. Gamzee and Carcat were best besties. Dave Cat is a thing. Rose and Kanaya get married. I saw that picture all over Tumblr when it happened. There's 2 discs that play a part in the story. I'm assuming they're suburb discs. And now I'm just thinking about Lemamberg. Something happens and one of them gets scratched, which causes a shift in reality. Carcatalicious. And God damn it, Dave. Yeah, that's all I got off the top of my head. Wow. Also, someone made me a troll Sona last year, and I unironically love it. It's so blurst. Now, in addition to just wanting to have a bit of a retrospective for Homestuck's 15th anniversary, 15th birthday, part of my making this video is because despite never being able to get into it in the past, part of me feels like I missed out. I missed out on a big fan culture phenomenon. I wasn't truly a part of it. I was like outside looking in through the windows like, oh wow, that's certainly a party in there. Why are they spinning a bottle so much? And I know with its internet folklore status in terms of fandom, a lot of people getting into fandom more recently hear about Homestuck and get morbidly curious about it. So, and this may be very ambitious, but why not attempt it? I've decided that if I couldn't be there for the party myself years back, why not throw my own incredibly, horribly, way past fashionably late party to see what the hullabaloo is about? I am going to read Homestuck in its entirety in the year of our Lord 2024, and I'm taking you with me. I'll be sure to keep you guys posted on the whole thing, but yeah, pray for me. And that about does it. Were you a Homestuck back in the day? Are you still a Homestuck? Or do you only know about Homestuck in bits and pieces from online? Go ahead and share your Homestuck fandom experiences and stories in the comments. I'd love to read them. And if you'd like to see more fandom and fan culture videos from me, then feel free to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!